Hello, everyone. 7 seconds. You're probably wondering why 7 seconds are important. Shall I tell you why? Apparently, in 7 seconds, we build solid first impressions. So, I better get on and tell you a bit more about myself. I'm Shahina. First impressions are important in both art and in perception, so I would describe myself as an avid artist, an adventurer, and a theory tester. So, although I would say I was an avid artist, my marketing career was often quite demanding, and it left me with little time or inclination to paint. But that pretty much changed this year when I went through what I term an artistic transformation. So today, I hope to tell you a little bit more about my journey and what I learned from it. It all started pretty much last year, and here you see my paintings depicting landscapes. So as you could tell, the two on the left are quite influenced by printmaking, which is what I graduated in from art school. And the one on the right is much more free flow. So how did I get there? Well, I came across this saying by Degas, and what Degas says is that art is not what you see, it's what you make others see. And this really inspired me. It really made me think about myself as an artist and what message I was conveying, as well as art made me see art through another lens as well. The story goes a bit like this. One very late evening, I thought to myself, I've been an artist for a really long time now. I've been painting since I was 3 years old. I'm an ambidextrous painter. I can paint with both hands. I've tested loads of theories. I'm pretty sure I could do this in the dark. So that's what I did. I love to paint outdoors. So one very late evening in my friend's garden, I decided to paint, and here you have a painting I call Shadows in the Dark. It's pretty impressive and quite a change from the earlier work you saw. So I also applied Degas' thinking, and I really started to analyze the surface. And what I could see were these really interesting patterns. So research tells us that the mind has the ability to decode patterns, shapes, and obscure images. So what I did is I looked even closer, and this is what I saw. So nod, tell me what you see here. Nod if you see people. Nod if you see animals. Right, and right in the middle, in the focal point, do you see a face? What about a dog? So there we have it. This really inspired me even more. So on top of having a more expressive and a different artistic expression which had much more freedom, it also made me think about what people were seeing when they looked at my artwork. And what I did is I fell back on my research experience, and I started to look even more, and the closer I looked, the more patterns I saw. So I went back to my research experience, and I started to observe the observer. Yes, there is a deliberate typo, but did you read it correctly anyway? I think so. So this research took me to 4 different countries. I did extensive ethnographic research in both galleries and studios, and I had really engaging conversations with people in the gallery environment, asking them what they saw. I also worked with fellow artists, and we really delved into the art of perception. We talked about how observation worked in their work. And fast forward a little bit. Boom, boom. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the art of perception, a visual journey. So shall we start? Yeah. May I ask you to read this quote? Got it? Here you have a painting of mine, and it's meant to depict a vibrant and bustling city. Anywhere come to mind? You can nod, it's meant to be interactive. Hold that thought. Now, what if I do this, and I give you an abstract version of the same painting and tell you it's called NYC? Anyone got a guess? Exactly. So, from my research, from my artwork, what I started to see is that both the artist and the viewer go through a very similar journey. And this looks a bit like this. It starts with observation, then they both create an impression, and they both have then they perceive something. However, the big disconnect in this journey is what they perceive is often left a mystery, because there's limited dialogue between the artist and the viewer. So, what Clay says is really interesting. He says, art does not reproduce what we see, rather it makes us see. So I thought about this, and I spoke to a few of my colleagues, and what we've tried to do here is we've tried to visually depict this quote. So I'm going to show you some work by my colleague Jaffer. Do you have something in mind? What he's trying to convey? Now, what if I told you that the key point that Jaffer wanted you to take away from his artwork was emotion and archetype? Would this surprise you? So, that was a quick exercise there. No questions. So we now move on to something I think is fundamental in the art of perception, colour. Now, do you think that it's possible for two people to look at the same object, have the same amount of wavelength, hit their eyes at the same time, but see colour differently? Shall we see? So, who thinks red's the most dominant colour there? Who says white? Now, what if I do this? And I show you the same image in reverse. When I change the perspective, does it change your perception? Nice. So, perception in art. We artists use it in a whole manner of different ways. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you two paintings. The one on the left is by Renoir, and the one on the right is by Kandinsky. And it's meant to depict French ambience. So although you've probably noticed that they're quite different artistic genres, that's not the main point here. Okay, Renoir also depicts the scene very differently. There are lots of fleeting moments there, lots of interaction, and no real focal point. And Kandinsky's made it quite specific. So the one on the right, you could see that Kandinsky's been very focused, he's got very narrow focus. He's also abstract, so gone for form over function. But the key point for me here is that Renoir is native to France. However, Kandinsky only lived there for a very short period. So it could be argued that this is Kandinsky's perception of art, of French culture. So shall we fast forward a little bit? This is Kandinsky's work 15 years on. And as you can see, he's gone through a pretty dramatic artistic transformation. And we also know that Kandinsky was very committed to the abstract art movement. But why abstract art? You're probably asking yourself that. Abstract art was a step change from the art movements that came before it. It was thought that abstract art could be like a language. An artist used it to convey a message. It was built on the very notion of perception. And the real fundamental to abstract art was that it could be globally understood and easily accessible. So, I mean, do we agree? No. So, shall we fast forward a little? Here on the left, we have some work from Helmer Klint. And here on the right, we have some work from my colleague, Jane Sinclair. She's using composition in a very similar sort of way. But would you be surprised if I told you that Jane wanted to convey a message of flying kites? Well, she does. So here's some of my work. Where do you think it is? Do you think it's still New York? No. Right, okay, I'll give you a clue. I'll help you out. We're in it now. It's London. The painting's called The Nude, and I live quite close to Tower Bridge. So this is a super abstract version of what I painted. The bridge. It's a super abstract version that I painted from memory of a view I see often. So, can anyone see anything here? Does anyone see a face? Yeah? Can anyone see Elvis? What if I told you he had a dot on his nose? Can anyone see Elvis? No. Okay, that's my work instead. I'm not going to try and claim it. It's Rothko. Rothko says something that I think brings this whole session nicely to conclude and everything I'm trying to convey to you. He says that a painting is not a picture of an experience, but it is an experience. So I hope that you found today a really good experience. Thank you. I'll take it. So what I really want, as much as I'd take that second applause, but the thing I would like you to take away from today is that I did something quite special. I brought my two disciplines together, which is art and insight, so that you could see that the journey that both the artist and the viewer go on is pretty similar. We're both starting with observation, and really it doesn't matter whether you saw New York, London, or even Elvis. As long as something's been evoked, well, that is the art of perception, a visual journey. Now you can clap. Thank you.